Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into a thrilling tale that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The Jenkins family was on what seemed to be an ordinary road trip, their station wagon rumbling down a winding country road. Inside the car, the hum of the tires served as a steady background to the muted conversation. Tom, the father, gripped the steering wheel with a practiced hand, his eyes focused on the empty expanse ahead. Sarah, his wife, sat next to him, fiddling with the radio dial in search of a decent signal. In the back seat, their children, Lily and Max, sat in tense silence, their sibling rivalry simmering beneath the surface. Lily tried to tune out the world with her nose buried in a book, while Max stared listlessly out the window, occasionally glancing at his sister. "Are we there yet?" Max's voice broke the uneasy quiet, his tone tinged with boredom. Tom sighed, his gaze flicking to the rearview mirror. "Not yet, son. We still have a ways to go." Lily looked up from her book, her brow furrowed. "Dad, are you sure we're on the right road? I don't recognize any of this." Tom's lips tightened into a thin line. "Of course we are. I know exactly where we're going." Sarah reached over and placed a gentle hand on Tom's arm. "Honey, maybe we should double-check the map. Lily has a point. This doesn't look familiar." Tom's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white. "I've got it under control, Sarah. Trust me, I know what I'm doing." The family lapsed into silence once more, the growing unease palpable in the confines of the car. Lily glanced out the window, the scenery flashing by in a blur of greens and grays. Something about this place felt off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the road took an unexpected turn, leading the Jenkins family deeper into the heart of the countryside. Tom's brow furrowed in concentration, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape. Stay tuned as we continue this gripping story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. "I don't remember this turn," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Sarah leaned forward in her seat, a hint of concern in her voice. "Tom, maybe we should pull over and get our bearings. I don't think we're on the right road anymore." Before Tom could respond, the car crested a hill, and a new sight came into view. In the distance, a sprawling, dilapidated amusement park stood silhouetted against the darkening sky. Rusted roller coasters and overgrown carnival rides rose like skeletal fingers from the earth. "What the?" Max's eyes widened, his earlier boredom replaced by a mixture of curiosity and unease. Lily felt a chill run down her spine as she gazed at the abandoned park. "Dad, I really don't think we should be here." Tom slowed the car, his eyes narrowing as he studied the eerie scene before them. "It's just an old amusement park. Nothing to be worried about." Sarah placed a hand on his arm, her voice low and urgent. "Tom, I really think we should turn around. This place doesn't look right." But Tom was already steering the car down the winding road toward the park's entrance, his sense of adventure overriding his better judgment. The Jenkins family had taken a wrong turn, and they were about to discover the horrors lurking within the decaying halls of Wonderworld. As the car rolled to a stop in the empty parking lot, an uneasy silence settled over the family. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the faint sound of creaking metal. Tom cut the engine, and the sudden quiet was almost deafening. "Well, we're here," he announced, a touch of enthusiasm in his voice. "Might as well take a look around." Sarah placed a hand on his arm, her eyes pleading. "Tom, please. I have a bad feeling about this place. Let's just turn around and get back on the road." But Tom was already opening the car door, a determined expression on his face. "Come on, you guys. Where's your sense of adventure?" Max shrugged and followed his father, his curiosity overriding his better judgment. Lily lingered for a moment, casting a worried glance at her mother before reluctantly trailing after her brother. Sarah sighed heavily and grabbed her jacket, resigning herself to the family's decision. As she stepped out of the car, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into the jaws of something sinister. The main gates of Wonderworld loomed before them, their once vibrant colors faded and peeling. Tom reached out and pushed the gates open, wincing at the ominous creak that echoed through the static-charged air. "After you," he said, gesturing for his family to enter. Lily hesitated, her eyes darting nervously around the deserted park. Dad, are you sure about this? I really don't think we should be here. Tom flashed her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, sweetheart. What's the worst that can happen? With a resigned sigh, Lily stepped through the gate, her fingers tightly gripping the strap of her backpack. Max followed close behind, his steps quickening as he took in the eerie sights around them. Sarah trailed behind, her arms wrapped around herself as if warding off a chill. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that some unseen force had drawn them here for its own sinister purpose. As the family ventured deeper into the abandoned park, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, ominous shadows across the cracked pavement. The once vibrant carnival rides and attractions now stood as silent, decaying sentinels, their rusted frames creaking in the gentle breeze. Lily shuddered, her eyes scanning the park's desolate landscape. Guys, I really think we should leave. This place gives me the creeps. Max scoffed, his bravado masking his own growing unease. Come on, don't be such a baby. It's just an old amusement park. What's the worst that could happen? Tom placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. Nothing's going to happen, Lily. We're just exploring, that's all. Now, let's see what we can find. The family continued their trek, their footsteps echoing eerily through the empty park. As they rounded a corner, a sign came into view, its faded letters spelling out the park's name. Wonderworld. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, and she instinctively reached out to grasp Tom's arm. Tom, I really think we should leave. This place. It doesn't feel right. But before Tom could respond, a sudden, ominous sound pierced the stillness. In the distance, the faint hum of machinery began to grow louder, accompanied by the creaks and groans of metal. The Jenkins family froze, their eyes widening in alarm as they realized that the abandoned amusement park was coming to life around them. Something sinister was stirring within Wonderworld, and they were about to discover the true horrors lurking within its decaying walls. The night air had grown thick and oppressive as the Jenkins family stepped back into the eerie silence of Wonderworld. The once vibrant park now loomed over them like a menacing specter, its decaying attractions casting ominous shadows across the cracked pavement. Tom placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's shoulder, his grip betraying the unease creeping up his spine. We need to find a way out of here before it gets any darker, he said, his voice low and strained. Sarah nodded, her gaze darting nervously between the distorted structures around them. I agree, but we can't just leave. Not without understanding what's happening. She glanced at Lily and Max, who stood a few paces behind them, their faces etched with curiosity and fear. Mom's right. Max spoke up, a hint of defiance in his tone. We can't just bail. There's something going on here, and I want to know what it is. Lily's brow furrowed, her small frame trembling slightly. I don't know, Max. This place gives me the creeps. Maybe we should just find the car and get out of here. Before anyone could respond, a deep, resonant chuckle echoed from the darkness, sending a chill down their spines. Welcome, welcome, my dear Jenkins family. A smooth, cultivated voice spoke, its owner emerging from the shadows. I've been expecting you. The family turned to see a tall, slender man in a pristine, old-fashioned suit, his features obscured by the dim lighting. A disconcerting smile played on his lips as he approached them, his every step oozing a sense of otherworldly power. Who are you? Tom demanded, positioning himself protectively in front of his family. The man's smile widened, his eyes glinting with a gleam of amusement. Why, I am the caretaker of this place, the guardian of Wonderworld. You may call me Mr. Wonder. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, a spark of recognition flickering in her eyes. Wonderworld. She murmured, the name triggering a distant memory. Mr. Wonder's gaze settled on her, his expression unreadable. So you remember this place, don't you, Sarah? He chuckled softly, a hint of something darker lurking beneath the surface. It seems your family has taken a rather unexpected detour tonight. Tom's brow furrowed, his protective instincts kicking into high gear. What do you want from us? he demanded, his voice low and threatening. Mr. Wonder's gaze shifted to Tom, his smile never wavering. Nothing more than to offer you a chance to confront your deepest selves. He gestured grandly toward the park's towering, twisted structures. Wonderworld has a way of revealing one's true nature, you see. And I must say, I'm quite eager to see what it has in store for the Jenkins clan. Lily shrank back, her eyes wide with fear. I don't understand. What do you mean? Mr. Wonder's attention turned to the young girl, his expression softening ever so slightly. My dear Lily, all will become clear in due time. But first. He raised a gloved hand, pointing toward an ominous-looking funhouse in the distance. I believe your personal journey of self-discovery awaits you in the House of Mirrors. Before any of them could protest, the ground seemed to shift beneath their feet, the very air around them crackling with a strange energy. Tom instinctively reached out to his family, but they were suddenly yanked apart, each pulled toward a different corner of the park by an unseen force. No! Sarah cried out, her fingers slipping from Tom's grasp as she was swept away. Mom! Dad! Lily's terrified shout echoed through the eerie silence, and then silence. Tom found himself standing alone, the weight of his family's absence crushing him. He whirled around, searching frantically for any sign of them, but the park had become a maze of shifting shadows and distorted reflections. Sarah? Lily? Max? His voice cracked with desperation as he called out their names, his heart pounding in his ears. A low, ominous chuckle reached his ears, and Tom spun around to face the unsettling figure of Mr. Wonder, who now stood mere inches from him. Now, Thomas, the man said, his tone dripping with false concern. There's no need to fret. Your family has simply been called to confront their inner demons. And you, dear Tom, are no exception. Tom's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. What have you done to them? He demanded, his voice tinged with a mixture of fear and rage. Mr. Wonder's smile widened, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. I've done nothing, my friend. This is all part of Wonderworld's grand design. He gestured toward the looming funhouse. Now, I believe it's your turn to face the truth within. Go, Thomas, and let the House of Mirrors reveal what you've been hiding, even from yourself. Before Tom could respond, he felt a familiar pull, the ground shifting beneath his feet once more. Panic surged through him as he was swept away, the last thing he saw being Mr. Wonder's triumphant grin. The world around Tom blurred and distorted, the edges of his vision wavering as he was propelled toward the ominous funhouse. He stumbled through the entrance, his senses assaulted by a dizzying array of mirrors and shifting reflections. As he made his way deeper into the House of Mirrors, Tom found himself confronted with a barrage of distorted images, his own face, twisted and contorted, staring back at him from every angle. The reflections seemed to move and shift of their own accord, as if taunting him, daring him to confront the truth within. Tom's heart raced, his palms growing sweaty as he struggled to make sense of the disorienting environment. This isn't real, he muttered, his voice trembling. It can't be real. But as he continued to navigate the maze of mirrors, the reflections began to take on a more sinister quality. Tom's face morphed, the features becoming more haggard, the eyes sunken and hollow. The image before him seemed to taunt him, whispering of his failures, his inadequacies, his deepest fears. No, Tom breathed, his voice barely audible. This isn't who I am. Yet the reflections persisted, tormenting him with a barrage of self-doubt and self-loathing. Tom felt his carefully constructed facade crumbling, the walls he had built around his emotions beginning to crack and crumble. As he sank to his knees, his head in his hands, Tom finally let the tears he had so long suppressed flow freely. The weight of his family's disappearance, his own insecurities, and the overwhelming fear of the unknown threatened to consume him. In the distance, a faint echo of Sarah's voice reached his ears, followed by the terrified cries of his children. Tom's head snapped up, his gaze frantically searching the mirrored maze for any sign of his loved ones. Sarah! Lily! Max! He called out, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Where are you?" But the only response he received was the eerie, taunting laughter of Mr. Wonder reverberating through the house of mirrors, mocking Tom's despair. The family gathered themselves after the harrowing experience in the house of mirrors, their nerves still rattled by the distorted visions they had confronted. Lily clung to her mother, while Max kept a defiant distance, his bravado thinly veiling his vulnerability. Tom and Sarah exchanged a silent, weighted look, understanding the need to maintain unity in the face of the unknown. "We can't keep stumbling around in the dark like this," Tom said, his voice tinged with desperation. "We need to find a way out before." His words trailed off, the unspoken fear of failing to escape Wonderworld looming between them. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his arm, her expression resolute. "We'll figure this out together. But we need to stay focused. What other choice do we have?" As if in response to her words, a faint melody began to drift through the air, drawing the family's attention deeper into the park. They followed the sound, a sense of unease growing with each step, until they found themselves standing before a towering, dilapidated carousel. The once vibrant attraction now bore a sinister, corrupted appearance, its wooden horses frozen in grotesque, twisted poses. The carousel's lights flickered erratically, casting an eerie glow that heightened the sense of dread. "We should keep moving," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't like the look of that thing." But Max, ever daring, stepped forward, his curiosity piqued. "What are you, scared? There's no way we're leaving without checking this out." He glanced back at his parents, an implicit challenge in his gaze. Tom opened his mouth to protest, but Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder, urging him to let Max take the lead. "Maybe there's something here that can help us," she said, her tone measured. Nodding reluctantly, Tom followed his children as they approached the carousel, the family's unease palpable with each step. As they drew closer, the melody intensified, its haunting notes resonating with their deepest emotions. Lily shuddered, wrapping her arms around herself. "I don't know about this, you guys. It feels wrong, like it's calling to us." "Don't be such a baby," Max scoffed, though even he faltered slightly as they neared the carousel's entrance. "We've come this far, might as well see what it's got." One by one, the family stepped onto the carousel, the worn wood creaking beneath their feet. Tom instinctively reached for Sarah's hand, the sense of unease they shared palpable. As they took their seats, the carousel began to move, its motion slow and ponderous, as if reluctant to start. Suddenly, the ride lurched forward, the horses' movements becoming more erratic and frenzied. The family gripped the sides of their seats, their knuckles turning white as they struggled to maintain their balance. The carousel seemed to take on a life of its own, the horses twisting and contorting in ways that defied the laws of physics. Lily let out a terrified gasp as the horse beneath her morphed into a nightmarish, fanged creature with glowing eyes. Max, his bravado faltering, stared in wide-eyed horror as his own mount transformed into a skeletal, decaying figure with bony hands clawing at him. Sarah fought back a scream as her horse's once vibrant paint peeled away, revealing rusted metal underneath. Tom, his eyes squeezed shut, tried to focus on his breathing, but the unsettling creaks and groans of the carousel's mechanisms disrupted him. He felt the weight of his fears pressing in, threatening to overwhelm him. As the ride reached a frenetic pace, the family was assailed by terrifying visions. Lily saw herself trapped in a never-ending maze, her cries for help unanswered. Max relived the moment he disappointed his parents, their faces twisted in disgust. Sarah relived the guilt of her past mistakes, their consequences unfolding before her eyes. Tom faced the most crushing vision of all, an image of himself as a failure, incapable of providing for his family, his inadequacies laid bare. He saw his children's disappointment and his wife's sorrow, all because of his shortcomings. The carousel spun faster and faster, the family's screams mingling with the discordant melody that seemed to seep into their souls. Time lost all meaning as they were consumed by nightmarish hallucinations, their grip on reality slipping away. Just when it seemed they could endure no more, the ride ground to a sudden halt, the horses freezing in their twisted positions. The family, dazed and shaken, slowly disembarked, their legs trembling beneath them. Lily clung to Sarah, tears streaming down her face. I want to go home, she whimpered, her voice small and vulnerable. Max, for once, remained silent, his usual bravado replaced by a haunted expression. He glanced at his father, the unspoken question in his eyes. Is this real? Tom, his own composure shaken, pulled his family close, offering what comfort he could. We'll find a way out of this, I promise, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We just have to. Keep going. As the family regrouped, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, making their skin crawl. Mr. Wonder, his enigmatic smile never wavering, approached them, his gaze filled with twisted amusement. So, you've faced the demons within, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. But tell me, have you truly confronted the darkest corners of your souls? The carousel was merely the beginning. There is much more to discover here in Wonderworld. The family tensed, their fragile unity the only thing keeping them grounded in the face of this unsettling entity. What do you want from us? Sarah demanded, her protective instincts kicking in. Mr. Wonder's smile widened, his eyes glinting with a sinister light. Only to watch you explore the depths of your own fears and desires. After all, there's nothing quite as fascinating as the human mind. With that, he turned and vanished into the shadows, leaving the family to ponder the true nature of the horrors they had confronted, and those that still lay in wait. The Jenkins family stepped through the threshold into a disorienting maze, its walls shifting and warping before their eyes. Gone were the familiar sights and sounds of the decaying Wonderworld they had grown accustomed to. This new realm felt like an entirely separate world, one that sought to unravel their very sense of reality. As they ventured deeper into the labyrinth, the family split up, each member drawn down a different path by an unseen force. Tom found himself alone, the walls closing in around him as he grasped for any sense of direction. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the twisting corridors, her eyes darting from one mirrored surface to the next, seeking answers that eluded her. Lily clung to the crumbling walls, her breath catching in her throat as the maze threatened to swallow her whole. Max charged ahead, his rebellious nature fueling his determination, even as the shifting landscape threatened to overwhelm him. Guided by Mr. Wonder's chilling whispers, the family members were forced to confront their deepest, most guarded secrets, revelations that would challenge their understanding of themselves and the fragile bonds that held them together. Tom's path. Disoriented and alone, Tom stumbled through the maze, his mind racing with anxious thoughts. As a practical man who valued order and control, the shifting, unpredictable nature of the labyrinth unsettled him to his core. He longed for the familiar comforts of his role as the responsible provider and patriarch, but those certainties had been stripped away. Turning a corner, Tom found himself face to face with a mirror, its surface rippling and distorted. Drawn in by his own reflection, he watched as it morphed and changed, revealing glimpses of a life he had long suppressed. He saw himself as a young man, full of ambition and promise, now dulled by the weight of his responsibilities. Flashes of memory surfaced, missed opportunities, regretted decisions, a growing sense of inadequacy that had haunted him for years. Tom reached out to the mirror, his fingers tracing the contours of his weathered face. "Is this who I am?" he whispered, the vulnerability in his voice betraying the layers of emotion he so desperately tried to conceal. The reflection shifted again, and Tom saw his family, Sarah, Lily, Max, their expressions a mixture of disappointment and reproach. "You've let us down," they accused, their voices echoing through the labyrinth. "You're not the man we needed you to be." Sinking to his knees, Tom felt the crushing weight of his failures. The mirror shattered, and in the shards he saw flashes of his family's struggles, their personal demons magnified and distorted. This was the truth he had been denying for so long, that his own emotional distance and unwillingness to be vulnerable had taken a toll on those he loved most. Tears streamed down Tom's face as he grappled with the painful revelations. But in the midst of his anguish, a glimmer of resolve began to take root. He had to find the courage to confront these truths, to break free of the barriers he had erected around his heart. Only then could he hope to repair the fractures in his family. Sarah's path. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the labyrinth as she searched for any sign of her family. The maze's mirrored surfaces surrounded her, reflecting her own image back to her, distorted and fragmented. Catching glimpses of herself in the mirrors, Sarah was confronted with painful memories from her past. She saw herself as a younger woman, full of dreams and aspirations, before the weight of responsibility and regret had slowly chipped away at her spirit. "Where did it all go wrong?" she whispered, her fingers trailing across the cold, smooth glass. The mirrors shifted, and Sarah watched as scenes from her life unfolded before her. Her wedding day, the birth of her children, the endless cycle of household chores and family obligations. But woven throughout these moments were flashes of her own discontent, the longing for something more beyond the confines of her domestic role. "I should have done more," she lamented, her voice heavy with guilt. "I should have been braver, taken more risks. Now it's too late." As Sarah wandered deeper into the maze, the mirrors began to crack and distort, reflecting the fractures within her own psyche. She saw the disappointment in her children's eyes, the distance that had grown between her and Tom over the years. All the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had silently buried, now haunted her. Gripping the edges of a mirror, Sarah leaned in, her breath fogging the surface. "Who am I, really?" she asked, her reflection shifting and warping before her eyes. "What have I become?" In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She would not be defined by her regrets or the constraints that had been placed upon her. This was her chance to reclaim herself, to embrace the untapped potential that still lingered within. With newfound resolve, she pressed onward, driven to confront the truths that had been buried for far too long. Lily's path. Lily's steps faltered as she navigated the twisting corridors of the labyrinth, the shifting walls disorienting her senses. Surrounded by mirrors on all sides, she caught glimpses of her own reflection, distorted and unrecognizable. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Where's my family?" As Lily moved deeper into the maze, she found herself drawn to a series of mirrors that seemed to beckon her forward. Hesitantly, she approached them, her gaze fixed on the reflections that stared back at her. In one mirror, she saw herself as a young, carefree child, her eyes bright with wonder and her smile wide and unguarded. Beside it, another mirror revealed a version of Lily that was slightly older, her features softening as she clung to the security of her family's embrace. But as Lily's eyes frantically scanned the mirrors, the reflections shifted, morphing into something far more unsettling. The young, confident Lily was replaced by a girl who hunched inward, her expression clouded by insecurity. The warmth of her family's love gave way to a sense of isolation, of being perpetually overlooked and overshadowed. "No, this isn't me," Lily protested, her hands pressing against the cold glass. "I'm not." Her voice trailed off as she struggled to reconcile the fragmented images before her. Suddenly, a new reflection emerged, one that showed Lily standing tall and resolute, her gaze unwavering. This Lily was not defined by the limitations and doubts that had haunted her, but by a newfound strength and determination. Lily's eyes widened as she recognized the potential within this reflection, the glimmer of the person she could become if she dared to step out of her brother's shadow. With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders and pressed onward, her steps more assured as she navigated the labyrinth, driven to uncover the truths that would enable her to forge her own path. The family stood before a massive, ominous Ferris wheel that loomed over the central square of Wonderworld. Its rusted, creaking structure cast long shadows across the ground, seeming to beckon them closer with a sinister promise. "This must be the final challenge," Tom said, his voice tense with apprehension. "We have to get through this if we want to escape before sunrise." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We'll get through this together, Tom. We've come too far to give up now." Lily fidgeted nervously, her gaze fixed on the towering ride. "I don't know if I can do this. What if it's worse than the others?" Max stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We don't have a choice. Let's just get it over with." He reached for the door to one of the decrepit Ferris wheel cabins, ushering the others to follow. As they stepped inside, the cabin door slammed shut behind them, sealing them in. The air grew thick with tension, the only sound the groaning of the ancient machinery as the wheel began to turn. Tom held his family close, bracing himself for whatever horrors awaited them. "Remember, we're in this together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a family." The cabin rocked and swayed as it ascended, each revolution taking them higher into the ominous night sky. Dim lights flickered along the spokes of the Ferris wheel, casting an eerie glow over the park below. Suddenly, the cabin doors flew open, revealing a new challenge tailored to each family member. Tom, Sarah, Lily, and Max were each pulled towards their own personal trials, separated once again within the confines of the ride. Tom's reckoning. Tom found himself alone in the cabin, facing a distorted reflection in the grimy window. The image warped and shifted, slowly morphing into a projection of his own face, twisted with disappointment and self-loathing. "You call yourself a father?" the reflection spat. "You can't even provide for your own family. How can they depend on you?" Tom recoiled, the words cutting deep. "That's not true. I work hard to give them everything they need." "But is it enough?" the reflection taunted. "Look at them, Lily, struggling to find her own worth, Max rebelling against your rules. And Sarah. You know she deserves better than this life." Tom's hands trembled as he gripped the sides of the cabin. "I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to be a good provider and a good father." "Your best isn't good enough," the reflection hissed. "You're weak, Tom. You hide behind your responsibilities, afraid to truly connect with your family. How can they trust you when you can't even trust yourself?" Tears stung Tom's eyes as the truth of the words sank in. He had always prided himself on being the rock his family could rely on, but deep down, he knew he was holding back, unable to be truly vulnerable. "No, I won't let you define me," Tom said, straightening his posture. "I may not be perfect, but I love my family more than anything. And I'm going to prove it to them, no matter what." Sarah's unfulfilled desires. As the cabin door opened for Sarah, she found herself standing in a lush, green garden, a stark contrast to the decaying park outside. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and the sun shone brightly overhead. Sarah let out a wistful sigh, taking in the serene surroundings. "This is beautiful. I haven't felt this peaceful in years." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the garden's winding paths, a younger version of herself, radiating joy and vitality. Sarah watched, transfixed, as the image of her former self wandered through the flowers, stopping to admire a butterfly that had landed on her outstretched hand. "This is what I used to be," Sarah murmured, a pang of regret tugging at her heart. "Before the responsibilities and the guilt weighed me down." The younger Sarah turned towards her, smiling warmly. "You don't have to be burdened by the past anymore. You can still embrace the adventurous spirit you once had." Sarah felt a stirring of hope, but then the image before her began to fade, replaced by a vision of her current self, exhausted, burdened by the demands of her life. "How could I ever go back to that?" she whispered. "So much has happened since then. It's not too late." The vision of her former self reassured her. "You have the strength to reclaim your joy, to find fulfillment beyond the confines of your responsibilities. All you have to do is take the first step." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her guilt and regret begin to lift. With a newfound determination, she opened them, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. Lily's shadow of doubt. As the cabin door opened for Lily, she found herself in a maze of mirrors, her reflection distorted and fragmented all around her. She took a hesitant step forward, feeling her insecurities rise to the surface. "Max is always so confident, so sure of himself," Lily murmured, her gaze shifting from one mirror to the next. "I can never measure up to him." Her reflection shifted, morphing into an image of her brother, his expression taunting and dismissive. "You'll never be as good as me, Lily," the reflection sneered. "You're just the quiet, forgettable one. No one even notices you when I'm around." Lily felt her chest tighten with anxiety, the familiar feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt flooding her mind. "No, that's not true. I have my own strengths, my own talents." The reflection laughed, the sound echoing through the maze. Then why do you hide them away? Why do you let me overshadow you? Lily shook her head, trying to push back the negative thoughts. I don't know. I'm afraid of failure, afraid of not being good enough. Suddenly, a new reflection appeared, and Lily was startled to see her own face, radiant and confident. You are enough, Lily, the reflection said, her voice soft and reassuring. Your worth isn't defined by anyone else. It's time to step out of the shadows and embrace who you truly are. Lily felt a surge of courage, her gaze hardening with determination. You're right. I've let my fear hold me back for too long. It's time to take a stand. With renewed purpose, Lily strode forward, her steps growing steadier with each passing moment. Max's craving for approval. As the cabin door opened for Max, he found himself standing in a familiar setting, his childhood bedroom. The walls were adorned with posters and sports memorabilia, a testament to the interests and aspirations he had long since abandoned. What is this? Max muttered, confusion etched on his face as he surveyed the room. Suddenly, the bedroom door swung open, and a younger version of himself burst through, backpack slung over his shoulder. Max watched as the boy hurried to his desk, eagerly pulling out a stack of papers. Got another A on my math test, the young Max said, a wide grin spreading across his face. Mom and Dad are gonna be so proud of me. Max felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering the time when he sought his parents' approval, when good grades and athletic achievements were the key to their affection. That was a long time ago, he murmured, turning away from the scene. But the image didn't fade. Instead, his parents appeared, their expressions warm and proud as they praised the younger Max's accomplishments. That's our boy, his father said, placing a hand on his shoulder. We knew you could do it. Max felt a familiar ache in his chest, the desire for that same validation he had once craved. I don't need their approval anymore, he said, his voice wavering. I'm my own person now. The scene shifted, and suddenly, Max found himself alone in the room, the walls closing in around him. The air grew thick with a sense of isolation and longing. Don't I? Max whispered, his bravado crumbling as he realized the truth. No matter how much he tried to push them away, a part of him still yearned for his parents' love and acceptance. As the cabin began to descend, Max steeled himself, determined to confront this final trial and prove his worth, not just to his family, but to himself. The Ferris wheel ascends. The 4 family members were reunited in the cabin, their individual trials having left them shaken but resolute. They held each other close, drawing strength from their shared experience. We made it through, Sarah said, her voice tinged with relief. But I have a feeling the worst is yet to come. The Ferris wheel continued its slow, ominous ascent, the cabin rocking back and forth as it climbed higher. Lily pressed her face to the window, peering out at the park below, now bathed in an eerie, crimson glow. Look, she whispered, her eyes widening with fear. The sun is rising. Tom wrapped his arm around his daughter, pulling her closer. We have to keep going, no matter what. We're almost there. As the cabin reached its peak, the family braced themselves for the final challenge, their hearts pounding with a mixture of dread and determination. The dawn was fast approaching, and they knew that their very survival depended on their ability to confront the last of their demons. The family stood before the massive, ominous Ferris wheel, trembling with a mix of fear and determination. After navigating the treacherous trials of Wonderworld, they had reached the final challenge, where the secrets of the park and their own past would be revealed. As the wheel began to turn, Tom felt a familiar sense of dread wash over him. He had buried his emotions for so long, afraid to be vulnerable, but now he knew that facing them head-on was the only way to save his family. Squeezing Sarah's hand, he took a deep breath and stepped into the nearest cabin, his children following closely behind. The cabin jolted to life, and the family found themselves surrounded by distorted mirrors, each reflecting a different version of themselves. Tom stared into the glass, confronting the image of a man who had always prioritized practicality over emotional openness. He saw a father who had failed to properly support his children, a husband who had let his wife's dreams wither. "This is who you really are, Tom Jenkins," a haunting voice whispered. "A man too afraid to embrace his true self." Tom gritted his teeth, refusing to let the reflection break him. "No, this isn't who I am. I'm more than that, and I'm going to prove it to my family." Across the cabin, Sarah gazed into the mirrors, her expression a mix of sorrow and determination. The images reflected back at her were a painful reminder of the mistakes she had made in the past, the missed opportunities, the regrets, the times she had put her own needs aside for the sake of her family. "You've always been too afraid to live your own life, Sarah," the voice taunted. "Too scared to take a chance and find true happiness." Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she squared her shoulders. "That may have been true before, but not anymore. I'm going to show my family, and myself, that it's never too late to chase our dreams." Lily stared into the mirrors, watching as her own image blurred and distorted, merging with those of her brother and parents. She saw herself constantly overshadowed, her insecurities and self-doubt magnified 100-fold. "You'll never be as strong or as confident as Max," the voice hissed. "You'll always live in his shadow, never finding your own voice." Lily felt her hands clench into fists, a newfound determination burning within her. "No, that's not who I am. I'm going to prove that I'm just as worthy, just as capable as my brother. I'm going to make my own path, and my family will see me for who I truly am." Max stared into the mirrors, his reflection shifting and contorting until it showed a hollow-eyed, dejected version of himself, a young man desperate for his parents' approval, yet too proud to ask for it. "You'll never be good enough, Max," the voice taunted. "No matter how hard you try, you'll always fall short of their expectations." Max's jaw tightened, and he straightened his posture. "I'm not going to let you or anyone else define me. I'm going to find the strength to be my own person, and I'm going to do it with my family by my side." As the Ferris wheel spun faster, the family members faced their reflections with renewed determination. They had come too far to let their fears and insecurities hold them back any longer. Reaching out to one another, they formed a tight-knit circle, their hearts beating in sync as they prepared to confront the final challenge. Suddenly, the cabin doors slammed open, and Mr. Wonder stood before them, his enigmatic gaze piercing through the family. "Well done, my dear Jenkinses," he purred, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "You've made it further than I ever expected. But now, the true test begins." The cabin lurched, and the family found themselves transported to a vast, endless expanse of darkness. Mr. Wonder's laughter echoed all around them, and they realized they were trapped, with no way to escape. "This is the heart of Wonderworld," Mr. Wonder declared, his voice reverberating through the void. "The very essence of your deepest fears and desires made manifest. Can you find the courage to confront them, one last time?" The family huddled together, faces etched with determination. They had come too far to give up now. As the darkness closed in around them, they steeled their resolve, ready to face whatever horrors Wonderworld had in store. With a deep breath, Tom stepped forward, his hand clasped tightly in Sarah's. "We're not going to let you win, Mr. Wonder. We're going to find a way out of this, and we're going to do it together." The family moved as one, their unity stronger than ever. They navigated the inky blackness, guided by the faint glimmer of hope that they could escape this nightmare and reclaim their lives. Lily and Max flanked their parents, their hands intertwined, drawing strength from each other. Suddenly, a blinding light appeared in the distance, and the family surged forward, driven by a desperate need to reach it. As they drew closer, the light grew brighter until they found themselves standing at the edge of a vast, crumbling chasm. Mr. Wonder's laughter echoed all around them, and they turned to see the caretaker of Wonderworld standing on the other side, his arms outstretched in a mocking gesture. "South close, and yet so far," he taunted. "What will you do now, Jenkins family? Will you risk it all to escape, or will you succumb to the darkness that lies within?" The family members looked at one another, their eyes locked in a silent conversation. They had come too far to give up now, and they knew that their only chance at survival was to work together, to trust in each other, and in their own inner strength. With a nod, they turned to face the chasm, hands clasped tightly. Taking a deep breath, they leapt, their bodies hurtling through the air as they fought against the pull of the abyss. Time seemed to slow as they soared, their hearts pounding in their chests. And then, as if by some unseen force, they felt themselves being lifted, carried across the chasm and deposited safely on the other side. Gasping for breath, they looked up to see the first glimmers of dawn breaking through the darkness, signaling their triumph over the horrors of Wonderworld. Mr. Wonder's enraged cries echoed behind them, but the family paid him no heed. They had escaped, and they were forever changed by the trials they had endured. As they made their way back to the real world, they knew that their bond had been forged in the crucible of their darkest fears, and that they would face whatever the future held with newfound strength and resilience. The Jenkins family had survived Wonderworld, and in doing so, they had discovered the true power of their family's love and trust. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united in their determination to never again let their fears and insecurities define them. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, push the bell icon, and share this video with your friends. Stay tuned for more exciting tales, and we'll see you in the next